see you waving.
It works. Oh, it happens on when I'm Zooming with the students sometimes, and the poor souls sort of sitting there going, ah.
Yeah, I haven't quite got the hang of Zoom yet.
I'm getting quite au fait with it now, and so using it for recording stuff and all sorts of things. But I've got the professional hit, so I might as well use it for everything possible. Since I'm paying a bit for it. So
yeah, I'm getting used to it. But yes, it's remembering to click to let people in.
And I mean, I've got it set up to the state that and I've got a set of regular meetings for each group and that, and I have managed to get them so that they can all come in unmuted and all this kind of thing. So they're not sitting there going,
writing notes.
They usually don't even bother writing notes. I mean, most of my students are fairly used to me. They just make rude gestures on the screen.
Whatever works.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, I'm actually here. I want to say something. Oh, poor souls. Oh, so how are you this week then?
Cold, but good. We actually had about 7 snowflakes yesterday.
Wow.
We had a smattering of snow. Lasted about 20 minutes, and that was about it.
No, we're well away again. Not like they are in the east, because it's sort of come over like to the Pennines, hasn't it? If you look at the map.
Yeah.
And but we're getting a bit, because the warm Atlantic air is meeting the cold stuff from the east, and so we got a bit. So we're actually covered today.
Right.
I mean, the hills are.
Yeah.
But down here, because we're 500 foot less than they are, at least. We've got it today. The car's covered because I wanted to go out today.
Well, that's yeah. I put a jar out thinking I'll collect some snow water, and it stopped snowing. As soon as I put the jar out in the garden, the snow stopped. Typical.
I mean, absolutely. If you really would like some, I'll collect you some.
So post me.
I'll post you a plastic bottle of snow water. I could actually do that. I've actually got the kit to do that if you would really like some.
I managed to scrape some off of where it had settled a bit, but thank you anyway. But yeah, it did make me laugh as soon as I put the jar out to connect it. It stopped.
It is funny when other world sort of goes, no, it shan't. You're not having that. You're not doing that.
Not meant to have that. Yeah. You have to work for it.
Oh no. So yeah, I mean, I can get snow water just like that. So
might as well another free magical gift from Mother Nature.
Yes, it is. And you think what it's done, when it's been.
Yeah.
It's absolutely super. And the freezing and the different states that it's been in, because water's just not sort of just water. It can be solid and liquid and gas and that. And it's been all of those.
Yeah.
To go, whoa, yeah.
Clever stuff. Yeah, definitely clever stuff to work with. Yeah, that's what I want. I wanted some.
Yeah. And we collect rainwater for all sorts of things, including the biodynamics. And we've got sort of tubs.
Yeah, we got a big water butt. Yeah.
And but no, I mean, just for other things like for magic things or for the biodynamic stirrings and that, rather than using tap water, we'll use rainwater.
Yeah.
And so the place looks a little weird at times, it's sort of attractive, and then there's 3 plastic buckets. And people go, why? And you sort of look at them and decide whether they actually want to know, or whether by the time you've said 5 words it'll have gone glaze.
Yeah. No, my husband and I were discussing this morning because we're facing some renovations for the house, which is very exciting, but it's going to be a lot of chaos. But we want to make the house work for us, and I think you have, haven't you? It's who wants to live in a show home? It's got to be a home, hasn't it? But it's also got to work for you. And at the moment, the house isn't quite working for us, where lives changed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, you have got to be practical, haven't you? It has got to work for you, whether it looks pretty or not.
Yeah. And if you can manage both, that works. But, you know, plastic buckets, you can sort of get them almost for nothing for some things.
Yeah.
To buy some sort of, you know, posh handmade wooden barrel kind of thing is going to cost a few bob, and you think, really?
Yeah.
Do I need that? And no, you very often don't.
And if you've got plastic tubs, then you might as well recycle them and use them for something rather than chuck them in the rubbish where they're going to sit in landfill for years and years.
Yeah, and we had trouble with the biodynamics people. Sort of must be nearly 30 years ago now when we started. Because I think, you know, Paul used to be a particle physicist and all this kind of.
It makes my head explode just to even think about the title of his job, let alone.
Well, it's fine actually. With him, it's actually fine. So I think I said he's actually the sort of bloke who can explain, you know, complicated quantum or something in The Cat Sat on the Mat. He really can. It's one of the things that I thought, I think I like this bloke. He's useful as well as pretty, kind of thing.
Always a bonus.
Well, yeah, you've got your list, you know, you've got to see what you can tick off.
A few boxes.
Absolutely.
My husband's glaring at me from behind the screen.
Oh, come on, He's been with you for long enough. He knows how women are, for goodness sake.
29 years. You must have ticked a few boxes.
You know.
Tea. That's good, isn't it?
Well, that's excellent too. That's another really good one. But now we went back to the biodynamics. I mean, they I think they're better at it now. But at the time, it was all like, oh, when you're doing your stirring, you know, you're stirring your cow shit or whatever it is for your hour or whatever it is. You need a birchwood pole and a wooden Swiss cow bucket and, you know, cow milk bucket and this sort of thing. And we went, why? And they said, oh, plastic's horrible, it's man-made. And so we said, well, yes, so's actually a spoon, you know. And sort of like, where does plastic come from? And they all went, I just went, oh God. So, you know, I mean, being me, as you can imagine, it was sort of like, well, it didn't come in on a meteor.
It was the aliens. They brought it.
It was about alien time then. It wasn't the aliens, honestly. And so you sort of start to explain, you know, things like petrol and coal and all this sort of thing and where they come from, and that it's sort of plants and shellfish and all this kind of stuff. And they'll sit there going, what is unsacred about ancient
why are we running
trees?
out of fossil fuels? Because they're not inexhaustible.
Well, they're not inexhaustible, no. But I mean, if you've got them, and like you said with my plastic bucket, use it.
Yeah.
But there's like, because it's plastic, it's somehow evil.
Yeah.
And you sort of go, no. Actually, what is unsacred about very, very ancient trees or very, very ancient shellfish or whatever, whichever thing you're using? And they were sort of like, they couldn't get any answer out of that. So, okay. And it's like, if only people sort of realised, I think we've said it before, haven't we? You know, I mean, there's nothing basically wrong with plastic. What's wrong is us throwing it away.
I think that's the issue, isn't it? There's this big drive to get rid of plastic, which I think, you know, ultimately.
Well, we do overuse it, you know.
Yeah. But then everybody went, oh, plastic, not allowed to use that anymore. let's throw it all away.
Yeah, you sort of go,
Yeah,
I can't handle this. I really can't handle this. This is completely nuts.
I did notice good old Monty Don on Gardener's World. Every time he uses a plastic pot, he has to say, now I'm reusing this. I'm not throwing it away. I'm reusing it because it's still good. And it's, I've got it already, so I might as well reuse it. Yeah.
I thought, well, I sort of think, good on you, Monty, but for goodness sake, is this
each time
a repetition every time?
Well, I would imagine if it doesn't, he'll get a load of emails in saying, you're using plastic.
Well,
but anyway, so explain to me your biodynamics. What do you do with your plastic pots of water?
Right. Okay.
Layman's terms.
Yeah, I know. I'll stick with the two basic ones that you really do need to use. But the whole thing, it's about the things that Mother Earth has. And the major one that we use is cow shit. And but we help Mother Earth to do things to the cow shit. And the other one that we use is silica. Where's a nice bit of silica around here? There must be a nice bit of silica. You've got a bit of silica near you, surely, haven't you?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Right, okay, well, just hang on. Don't go away.
Desperately looking. You would have thought one of us would have had a bit somewhere, wouldn't you?
Well, I had, but I had to get up from mine. Now, here is a beautiful piece of silica.
Yeah.
I did get one of my prettiest pieces.
So, mine's over in the fireplace.
Yeah. And mine was over on the mantelpiece above the fireplace.
Nothing within reach.
No, exactly. So this is silica. Crystal like this, like amethyst, and the simplest one, of course, is white quartz. And one of the most wonderful ones is clear quartz. Now, it's actually, I think it's actually the most abundant element like that on Earth.
Right.
And it's, well, you know how it works when you work with crystal. I mean, it works with light, and it sort of emits light and pulls light in and reflects light out, and just on the very simplest terms. So we work with cow shit and we work with silica. We also work with some other things, but we'll just worry about those two. And they both come, of course, from Mother Earth. Now, do you know anything much about homeopathy?
Little bits and pieces, not a huge amount.
Well, the only bit you really need to think about, and biodynamics is not homeopathy, but it's similar in the sense that the stronger the homeopathic remedy is, the less and less of the actual physical material there is in it.
Right. And
that's really important to remember, because it actually works for everything, as we know from magic. So, but so you take your cow shit in the autumn, around the autumn equinox, and preferably you go and get it from the field, from several cow pats. So you go around with a bucket shoveling bits of cow pat in, if you're going to make it yourself, which we have, and it's good to know. And then you've got some cow horns. Now, cow is important because the way a cow does her horn is different from the way a bull does her horn. And I haven't actually got examples at the moment. Mine eventually fell to pieces. But they're both spirals, which is amazing. They're both made of this. They're both made of the same stuff as hair. Whereas antlers are made.
Bizarre to think about anyway, isn't it? But yes,
yeah,
you can see it sometimes, can't you? Because you can see the fibers.
You can, yeah, you really can. And the other thing is, cow horns are easy to make hollow. They've got a sort of plug that comes out, whereas bull horns don't.
The dog eats them. We get them from the pet shop.
Very good for them. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of good stuff in them. It really is. And so you get some cow horns that are nice and hollow, and an old spoon that you don't mind, and you spoon cow shit that you just collected into the horns, and you've dug a pit a couple of feet deep in a place where you're going to remember where it is and you mark it. This is quite important. The number of people we have had is, I don't know where I put my pit. Dows for it. Okay. And you bury them in the earth and you mark it. And you leave them there from autumn equinox to spring equinox. Now, I mean, we're all seeing it. I mean, remember when midwinter came and we were all so pleased because then the sun's arc was starting to go up and we're getting more light every day. So you work it from when the sun swaps from going up to going down at the autumn equinox, and she's then going down. So in a sense, she's really pulling energy down over the winter. And you take it round to where she swaps over again at the spring equinox, and you dig them up. Now, when you dig them up, I mean, you remember what you put in, which was possibly green, smelly cow shit. Might not have been green, but it probably was sort of pretty cow shit. And you take them up and you pour the contents into your hand, and it's earth.
Yes.
Well, it's very energetic earth. I mean, both of our sets of students would be able to feel, whoa, it's almost like an electric shock when you put it in your hand. And you don't need very much. So you've got this stuff, which the earth has completely changed over her winter cycle. And you can then put a little pinch. I mean, you want a little pinch, like about, that much. I've got some here. Well, there's a little bottle that I use. And so I take a pinch of this and put it in, a bucket sort of about yay big, like this, which is about half to 2/3 full of water. And I use a bit of old broomstick that I've cut in half, cut to the length that suits me. And you stir it in both directions for an hour. Now, an hour is one of the measures of how long it takes the earth to revolve every day, and part of how long it takes the earth to go around the sun and all that sort of thing. So the hour is actually important because it is part of cosmic time. It isn't just on your watch. And at the end, and my students actually see this because I do this with them, you will see and feel that the water feels different.
Right.
And mostly they say it feels silky.
Okay.
And stirring it in both directions is important too, because you stir it round, and you get a lovely vortex going down. It's really beautiful to see. And then you take your stick out and you let the vortex sort of climb nearly to the top, and you put your stick in and you turn it into chaos, going the other way, madly. And then, of course, it goes from chaos into order, and you get this lovely order vortex again. And so you go around and do it the other way. And you keep doing that. It's really nice if you've got friends, because you can just do it for about 10 minutes, eat and pass it round, or at least a break and a cup of tea in the middle. Whatever. You should. It's great. And you can all chit chat and have fun and and have fun like that. So at the end of it, it's done. It's sort of cooked. Oh, and in the chaos bits, because what happens is you're also, when you stir, if you do it at a particular time when the moon is in, and this is not about phases, the moon, every month, it goes around and stands for 2 or 3 days in front of each of the constellations. Yeah. So you stir the cow shit when it's in front of an Earth constellation. Okay. Like Taurus or something.
Yeah.
And so that's pulling Taurus energy, which is a lot more than just astrological stuff, but it's pulling the energy from that constellation, and it comes down through the moon, and the moon like acts as a mirror and a focusing device and bungs it in. And when the chaos is happening is when the energy can go in.
Right.
And then you sort of combine it a bit like when you're doing porridge or a pancake or something. And it is, because I mean, you get sort of mucky stuff and then you combine it and it becomes a different substance.
Yeah.
And you do that with the order, and then you turn it into chaos again. So it gets another dollop of Taurus energy come in and back again. So it has an hour's worth of Taurus energy going in. So it's done. So you then go out looking exceptionally stupid because you've gone to the hardware shop and you've bought yourself, you know what a wallpaper brush is, one of those large floppy blobs.
One of the big ones,
yeah, you buy yourself a wallpaper brush and you buck it in one hand and you dip it in and it goes flick, 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 flick over the ground that you're going. And you just walk around your garden, flicking it everywhere. And this is the homeopathic bit, because you don't go around with a watering can carefully spraying it on, you flick it over and the energy spreads and it combines into the earth.
Yeah.
And the difference is amazing. And we actually find that they're all coming down from all the hills all around us now, as we've been here 18 months and word has got around. Beams coming in like nobody's bloody business. Okay, I need a bit of room to stir. Get out of the way. Shove over, mate, And it really makes a difference. When we first started using this in the last place, we were it was called Marsh House Farm. So it was actually in the middle of what should have been a marsh. Wasn't called it for fun, it's called it for a reason. So the land was, the land was also the blue clay, the anaerobic clay. So it was really hard to work.
Yeah.
And
garden.
yeah, we did all the usual proper gardening things to it, but we also did this. Within the year, we started around midsummer because that's when we moved into the place. And by the time it got round to spring equinox and I was there wanting to dig and, move things around and get the turf off and be able to put plants in and things like that. By the time we got round to that, we'd gone from like yay much soil to yay much.
Brilliant.
And we hadn't done anything except the biodynamics.
Yeah.
And we'd have this in London on our London clay too. We've got it's like gardening in a quarry up here. But we're actually, every time you go in, it's a stone.
Yeah.
I could lay billions of roads with the amount of stones I get in the garden. They're all about this big kind of thing, bigger. But that's gradually changing. I do take the stones out when they're too big now. But as well, the quality of the soil has changed. And it's going to take a while. We're effectively on mountain soil now instead of, valley soil.
Yeah.
And it changes it. So that's what the cow shit does. And the crystal does something different. But I can tell you about that another time rather than blowing all your minds.
It's from something so...
Yeah.
It's a waste product, isn't it? Really? Well,
the cow no longer needs it. Yes, in that sense. Yeah.
Put it on your garden, put it on your roses, but yes, to transform it into, it is pure magic, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody has any real idea of what the sun and the earth are doing together over that winter period.
Yeah.
To this smelly cow shit to turn it into this absolutely magical earth. And it's pure magic.
It's interesting that you mentioned the planets as well, because we did have a question after us saying last time, if anybody's got any questions. And the question was, do we work with zodiac signs?
Yes.
And yeah, you in the most spectacular way with your cow poo.
Absolutely, we do. It's with it, when we're talking about it, we tend to say, think of it in astronomical terms, but try not to put in too much of the astrological stuff that you may have learned from somebody's practice.
Yeah.
Because that may or may not be what's actually happening. So just think of it as the energy of Taurus, whatever that is.
Yeah.
We don't need to specify. And the qualities that the moon has, because I mean, like the moon the only reason you see the moon is she reflects sunlight.
Yeah.
And she's always doing it somewhere.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't see her at the moment just means that that's where you and your bit of the earth and she is at the time. So, and and this is where people sort of go, how does she do that? And if you can't answer, they don't believe you, sort of thing. You think, well, if you can't be bothered with that, don't worry. But she can pull the energy from the zodiac sign and then like focus it down and onto the earth. And because you're working and you've connected, I mean, when you start any magic, you sort of go, hi, I'm here, let's do it, or whatever, however you manage to do it. But it's some variation of that. Even, you've lit your candle and you've got your snow water out or whatever kind of thing. And well, I'm doing that at the moment. My water pot's got snow water in it.
In fact, we are in Aquarius. The moon is in Aquarius today, so that would work brilliantly with moon water, wouldn't it? That ties in quite nicely. But,
it does, as long as you remember that Aquarius is actually an air sign.
Yeah, do you know, this is when I first started working with them, I thought, I'm Scorpio, and she's a water sign, and I thought, hang on, that's not that doesn't feel right. They live in deserts. How can it be a water sign? Yeah, it does. It makes my head explode a little bit that it doesn't necessarily. Aquarius to me is water. It's obviously, it does make my head explode a little bit.
and yet it isn't. It's actually about water going from one place to another place, and it's almost this lemniscate thing of the snow water, rising from the sea, going through clouds and snow and ice and things, and then falling back to the land again. So yes, in that sense. But Scorpio is relatively a new sign because it was the dragon,
which makes perfect. That's far more suitable to me. Far more suitable to me.
and well, it was, I quite often think of, I mean, you must have been to the Uffington White Horse just up from Wayland's Smithy.
Indeed,
of course, because it's only up the road from you.
It is, yes. And it has a very strong connection to Terry Pratchett, my favourite author. So
indeed, it does.
Big connection there.
And of course, it's, there is Dragon Hill.
Yeah. And
if you look at that design, it's very, very, very like a dragon.
Mm. Dude, a dragon is, that makes far much more sense to me than school.
And so there's all of that to it as well. But no, we work with zodiac signs. We work with the whole cosmos, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And the zodiac signs is a very useful label for energies which come from certain planets and galaxies that we see in a particular form from here on Earth.
Yeah.
Now you head off to sort of Sirius Major and they look quite different, of course. But that's fine. That's Sirius Major.
They change quite regularly too, don't they? We don't have to wait for months for the moon to move into 2-3 days kind of thing before it moves into the next one. So it's quite a mixture of energies, isn't it?
It is. And I find that moon movement really interesting because, I mean, the moon does a year every month.
Yeah. Just to make everybody's head really explode.
Well, yeah, but it means you can work with that year.
Yeah.
all through the months.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like wait for July.
Yeah.
Because July is going to come round. The energy of July is going to come round in the moon. And she's going to say, hello, we're doing it today, guys.
And if you're impatient like me, it's brilliant.
Well, yeah. And it means you remind yourself every month too. You know, you're not sort of like, oh, I should wake up and do this now. You're in the habit of doing it every month. And that sort of thing. And I found I've just set off, I don't know if you noticed, just around midwinter, I set off with another course for the Deer Trots tribe people called Tree Magic.
Right.
And it's about using and working with the Ogham trees, the Ogham trees.
Yeah.
But it's also about working with the 13 moons.
Right.
And of course, you know, we work with those in other ways all the time. And the trees work with the moons. And so this whole sort of idea of the moon going around and doing various things, you know, different energies, comes through the trees as well. And it's really good because I'm helping people to work with that every month. Where are you? And the other thing, of course, that happens every month, and I know you must work with this, and I'm sure lots of people do, is, well, there are actually 8 phases of the moon. And they actually line up, each one lines up with one of our 8 seasons of the year.
Yeah.
And so we're just starting off first with the major fall, the sunfall. You know, the sort of new first quarter, full, last quarter, new again, sort of thing going around.
Yeah.
And how that works with things. And the trees work differently with each of that.
Right.
So everything you do is working with everything.
Yeah, it affects everything, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, like, you know, crystal work does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you work with these, and if you work with these at new moon, it's going to be different from the waning quarter.
Yeah. Well, the moon controls the oceans, let's face it, and if it's strong enough to control something that huge, then it's, you know, it's going to control everything, isn't it? Yeah. One of the things I get our students to do is to see how the moon phases affect their emotions and their feelings, and because it does, doesn't it? It does affect how we are and how we act.
Yeah.
It's powerful stuff. Tree magic is fascinating. When you think about for intent purposes, a large plant, i.e. a tree, but they're also different, and they have such different energies to them, don't they?
They do. And they're all necessary. I find this is something you probably do too, that which is the best tree? Two bricks, smack head. There is no such thing. On the other hand, you know, if you're working with threads and twining and supporting each other, ivy will be a damn sight better than oak.
Yes. Far more pliable.
You know, and it does it already. Sort of thing. So you sort of go, well, what are you going to do? That depends on what you're doing. You know,
but again, it's like crystals, isn't it? You will find that you are drawn more to some trees than others, as you are with crystals. I always liken crystals particularly to personalities. Some people you get on with, others you don't. Trees, I think, plants in general are all the same, aren't you? You are going to connect stronger with some rather than others.
You usually do, and that again is about all the stuff that is within you that has made up your personality and your body, because part of it you know, your personality is part of your body, how your body works. And yeah, you know, you'll really work well with ivy, say, or something. And oaks are a bit sort of like, oh, big to some people. I've seen that.
Yeah, well, yes.
And
I always think of them as a kind of more of a druidic tree.
well,
Like
they have
an
been
old,
sort
an
of
old
very
witch.
popularized as that, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, their old name means door.
right.
And they are a door. They are a threshold.
Oh, absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
this is just that tree is a numinous space. And if you get into things like that, the old names for them, they tell you a lot, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
With all of these things, and you
Yeah.
think, oh yeah, okay. So, you know, if you wanted to say, you know, you wanted to journey and you wanted to go into other worlds, so go and sit with your back on an oak tree is probably a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. It's got to be the first
One
choice.
of the ones that's really going to
Yeah.
help you, you know. If you're feeling a bit sort of disconnected, or that somebody was having a go at you, and you know, you went and sort of sat next to a rowan tree, you know,
We planted a rowan tree last year because our garden's quite small, so an oak tree would be far too big for our garden. But we did plant a rowan last year, and it is beautiful. It is beautiful.
they are, and they're always a protective tree of homesteads and your land and this sort of thing. And I mean, and people make necklaces of the berries to help.
Yeah,
You know, you dry the berries and that
yeah.
sort of thing. And there's so much, and they're also another threshold tree, but in a very different way to oak.
Mm. Yeah. Yew is the other one that I like. I always connect quite well with yew trees.
Yeah,
There's something quite special
ancient.
about them for me, I think.
There is for me too, and I've been fortunate. I haven't found one here yet, but I mean, I lived about 3 miles away from this sodding great cauldron one, which is supposed to be 3,000 years old. Really?
Fairly ancient then.
Yep. And well, you know how they measure them by the girth and that sort of thing. And she was completely hollow. She was beautiful. She
Okay.
covered in leaves and covered in berries every year, but she was completely hollow, and she was like a great cauldron womb.
Oh, perfect.
And you could get into her.
Oh, right. Oh, I wouldn't want that. No, I would move in there.
I used to go down there as often as I could, and since it wasn't very far away, and students came, and we used to be able to have some proper workshops. Well, face-to-face workshops. We still have proper workshops.
Okay, I remember them vaguely.
Yeah, vaguely. And you take them down there. And one of the funniest things, I mean, she was quite huge. And you take them, she's in a churchyard, of course.
Yeah,
because, you know, the Christians had come along and you know, taken over the site. They hadn't knocked her down. She was about 100 yards from the church, so it was okay. But you take them in and you say, okay, now you know we're going to the yew tree, so where's the yew tree, guys? And so often they could not see her. And I mean, she was like, you know, 30 feet across. I mean, the branches. And, you know, probably 20 or 30 feet. Well, it must have been about 30 feet high, at least, if not more. And they could not see her. And then you sort of went down this path, and then you had to turn left to her. And on that corner, she would go,
likes to make a grand entrance, obviously.
It really was. And I got used to her after a while, because I'd for some reason seen her, or I mean, I suppose actually I didn't see her, I felt her. And I was there, like, you know, I suppose like Ariadne in the labyrinth sort of thing. I was there pulling on the thread. Where are you? Oh, there you are. And so I found her very quickly. But I think as part of what she did for people was sort of like I can be here when I want to be, and otherwise I'm invisible.
Yeah.
And you can do this. And they get them to go and sit in there. You could get about 3 people in at once. She was on a sort of, they built a plinth like round her, and
Right.
we sat on that. So the rest of us would sort of sit around and hum. And then, you know, one would come out and another would swap in, and we just sort of kept holding the space for them and spinning the energy
Brilliant.
around.
Brilliant.
It was absolutely gorgeous. I just hope I can find somewhere like this up here, but I haven't yet. So maybe it's not a yew tree. Actually, I think I know where it is, and it's a very special, very small, very ancient wood, and it's got spiral paths that go around it.
Oh, okay. And
you get in at the top, and there is an old hill fort remains there, but it's also like a grove. You know, the trees do go pretty well around it, and I think that may be where we do this there. Whenever I can have students back again.
Yes, so we have our open rituals are in a country park, and we're lucky enough to have a beech tree grove.
Oh.
So we've got the circle of the beech trees, but right next to it are yew trees. Is a grove of yew trees that kind of forms a cave. It's very, very magical. So we tend to, when the sun's shining, we'll be out in the beech grove. But if we're doing darker work or if it's raining, we go into the yew tree one.
Yeah,
and both very interesting to work with.
You've been in there at night?
No, I haven't actually. The park's closed off at night time, but it would be fascinating to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to work in that yew cave at night.
Oh yeah, it would be brilliant.
Yeah, I've sort of got pictures of like moonlight at various stages coming, just flickering through the branches, and you know,
it would be very magical.
I wonder if they might let you later
on.
They
will actually. They've actually been brilliant. It's a park owned by the council, but run by a certain group. They've been absolutely brilliant, allowing weird witches into their park. They booked a space for us each time, and they've been absolutely brilliant. So they probably would actually.
Yeah. Well, when you can, I mean, do, and then I want to hear about it.
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
Have you tried working with holly trees? I like working in what they call a shaw of hollies. That's like a grove of hollies. Have you tried them?
We don't really have anything near us. However, I did have one self-seed in the garden. I found a little tiny, I'm assuming a bird must have dropped it from either end. It was a tiny little seedling. It's about this big now.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah.
It actually had berries. There was only about 3 of them, but it had berries.
She's all right. She's only a young teenager at the moment.
So that's going to be really interesting to work with, as you know, I had her from a tiny baby, so that's going to be really interesting to work with. Yeah.
And she she's probably got to a stage where she'll talk to you now, I would have thought.
Now, I went out to take some photos. When I saw the berries, I'm quick, take pictures.
Oh, I would have,
Little things that please me.
Well, are they little?
Well, in the scale of things, little, but to me, very big.
And I mean, in the Earth's terms, they're very big. And
she did gift me as well with a leaf that I found that had become a skeleton, where she dropped the leaf, and of course it was just the veins that were left. I've got it on one of my shelves because it was so beautiful.
It's so special. Yeah, they are. It'd be nice to work with one. I've been lucky most of my life. I've been near enough to quite a large group, a shaw of hollies, and there's another one here, which is very, very, very ancient. And one of the things that is, most hollies have lighter coloured stems, and they've got these very dark leaves. and there's this white ghost stands out of them.
Oh,
And, that is them.
yeah.
And bones, skeletons, all this kind of stuff. And these dark, dark leaves, and then these blood red berries if it's a girl. And it's just like, and you go in the twilight when there's just enough light to
Lovely.
really light up the trunk. And it's like,
Yeah. They're so powerful, aren't they? But so individual as well. And even two hollies will have different personalities, won't they?
Totally. And they're all family. When you've got more than, your holly will sort of become family with other trees, because then that's one thing the mycorrhiza do.
Yeah.
And they're like the internet for plants, kind of thing. And so, they're too far away to actually rustle leaves together, but they can talk through their internet, and they do. And that German bloke who's done the Hidden Life of Trees, he's found that a family of trees will support one that's dying.
Okay.
And that they still connect, and that one of the things which we do, don't worry about your bird planted holly, because that's fine, but is we'll just plant a specimen tree. And the poor bugger's lonely.
Yeah.
It hasn't got anybody else of its variety to talk to. And of course nobody thinks, well, it's just a tree. But they do. My old uncle, well, young uncle he was when I knew him, he was a woodsman too, and he knew all of this stuff because it was like country stuff, so everybody just sort of knew it. And you shouldn't do that. You go plant at least 3 and preferably 5. And you ask them before they go, see if that's where they want to be, and if they'll come with you, because they might not want to come and live with you. And so I've dealt with all of this.
I always talk to the plants.
All this kind of shit.
I haven't been arrested. Come home with me.
Don't you do it in the garden centre? I do. You may not be that obvious about it. But so, is it you?
Absolutely. Well, I do that with plants in the garden. We don't very rarely buy just one. We'll always buy a couple or 3. Bit more difficult in our tiny garden with trees, but we have got a little rowan, and we've got a little crabapple, which seems very happy as well. She's fruited, so she's obviously quite happy. We have a very sad Christmas tree that we planted one year. He was about this big. He's now probably 10, 12 feet high, but really skinny. He's just really tall and skinny, but he seems quite happy.
He's obviously doing all right.
Yeah.
Because he's growing.
And he gets nice little green shoots and little cones on him. So, it seems to be all right. And we had got a little one of the dwarf stock cherry trees as well. That was covered this year, or last year, with cherries. The birds ate them all, but, it's one of those things.
I love cherries. They're one of the things. Of course, they're always expensive.
Yeah, I like to buy. Cherries and gooseberries, they're my favourites.
No, I'm not so into gooseberries. Cherries, raspberries, strawberries. That sort of thing. But I found when we came to view here, there is an established cherry tree just out the front there. And last year, that was covered. Lovely black sweet cherries. And with the aid of Paul, I covered her. I got sort of mesh. I covered her. And, I didn't exactly apologise to the bird. I said, I want some. I'm having some. But I'll make sure you get some.
We got it there.
We had cherries off her for about 3 weeks. And I was able to make a bit of jam.
Nice.
So, and I've just planted 2 more youngsters up on the other side of the garden. So again, they've actually got trees to talk to. But I bet your holly and your crab and the Christmas tree and that, I bet they're connected now.
They all seem quite happy, and I figure as the crab tree has lots of fruit and as the cherry tree had lots of fruit, that they are happy. So yeah. But it was funny because it had all this fruit on it, and it wasn't quite ripe, and it wasn't quite ripe, and it wasn't quite ripe. And the very day that it was all ripe, the birds had to wait. Yeah, they waited. No, not yet. Right, lads.
Yeah.
The minute they were all ripe, they had the lot.
And I mean, in that sense, I mean, there's so much. I was going to say cleverer, but it's not cleverer. There's so much more in touch. They know.
Yeah, in tune with it, isn't it? Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I didn't mind because I mean it's only a tiny tree, and I probably wouldn't have had enough even to make a jam tart. So.
I know. Whereas mine is certainly quite big enough for that. But I mean, we netted like the week before I could see they were going to come, and then. When I could see they were all done and ready, about 10 days later it was, it all came off, and we took the cherries that we wanted, but we always left some, so the birds came in with it. I mean, there was a bit of sort of like from the birds. About time, come on, share and share alike, guys.
Yeah, but that's what it has to be, isn't it? It's about balance. And give and take with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I don't eat much. Don't eat much cabbage, but I've always got the cabbage for the butterflies.
Right. Yeah.
And that one, do you like whether they, go for it? We'll have butterflies. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I am quite conscious, being on the edge of a city as well. I am quite conscious about putting plants in the garden that do encourage the bees and the butterflies and the moths. We had a hummingbird moth a couple of years ago. I wasn't even sure what it was. I thankfully managed to get a photo of it, and I had to message my dad and say, "What's this bizarre creature in our garden?" It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So as the bird, I do try and grow as much as we can that will encourage the insects, and
every little bit helps.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get them here, and they were a bit late last year coming because I've sort of got used to when they're likely to arrive. And I was sat up in bed reading one night, and all of a sudden, oh, what? And there it was, beautiful creature.
Yeah.
And then rescue it from the cat.
Yes.
Who decided, wow, I can get up and chase that. No, you can't. And try and encourage the poor thing to go out again, because of course it was just attracted to the light.
Oh yeah.
And there's like I put a light in the window by the open window and turned everything else off. And as soon as it had got near there, it was like, oh, shut the window.
It's like directing the planes this way.
It was, and I felt I could get a job at Heathrow any time. Kind of it's quite amusing. I mean, people would laugh if they saw it. Because, I mean, this was about 11:30 at night, and I was pretty well nearly sort of like, it's time for bed. And it was like, no, we've got to rescue the hummingbird moth. Right, okay, fine. Get back into bed. Calm down. Go to sleep.
I am on the edge of a city, but it does show, just with a little bit of thought, how much wildlife can encourage into the garden. I cannot get hedgehogs. I've got a walled garden.
No,
they would have to have, throw a rope over and scale the wall, which isn't going to happen. We do get foxes in. I came out one morning to find one sitting in the flower bed. But yeah, it's just with a little bit of thought, you can encourage all sorts of wildlife into the garden, and birds, everything from sparrows, good old starlings, to, we've had the variety of tits in there as well, magpies, loads of pigeons, and of course being near the ocean we get seagulls as well. I love the sound of seagulls. But yeah, it is, you can get an awful lot, or encourage an awful lot of wildlife into your garden.
You can,
even if you've got a tiny little plot, or you are in the middle of a city, you can do it.
I mean, there've been some amazing articles in various sort of wildlife and gardening magazines about, you know, inner city gardens and roof gardens and things like that in London and Birmingham and all that. And it's amazing. And there's a lot of people in London who are beekeepers. And there's quite a lot of people who've got like roof gardens who are beekeepers. And of course, that's like bringing it in, because it's somewhere else that they've got, and it starts everything off. Because it isn't just the bees. I mean, you know, you've encouraged your blue tits or your bees or whatever kind of thing, but there's all the underneath miniature, micro life that comes, that they wouldn't come if that wasn't there too.
And then you can create, can't you? I mean, we don't use pesticides.
No.
Because if you get it right, the birds eat the pests, and there's other insects that eat the smaller insects, and it's that whole chain of life, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, that's what nature intended. I mean, everything eats everything, and strictly speaking, everything, you know, that there should be things that eat us too. We tend not to allow that to happen, which is a mistake. But we're part of that cycle, and you know, some of my cells are going to be a cabbage and a rabbit and possibly an eagle next time around. And that's wonderful, and that's how it should be. You know, and that doesn't affect your spirit. Your spirit is just using bits of planet to make a body for itself. And then you put those back, and somebody else uses a bit. Oh, I'll have a bit of that, and I'll have a bit of that kind of thing. And they make new bodies out of them. And if you think about, I mean, I do that a lot with ancestors, because people sort of think, oh, ancestors, and they sort of think, oh, you know, I've got a Sioux Indian in my ancestry, or a Chinese sage or something. And you think, no, you've actually got a microbe and a virus.
Which people probably don't want to hear at the moment.
Well, you can learn a lot if you start realizing, actually, and stop being afraid. Because all of these things, and of course, once you start realizing that, and you know you've been a cabbage and a rabbit before, you can sort of, okay, I'd like to connect to some rabbit energy. And you can use like the spirit mycorrhiza of your cells working through to them. And there's your journeying, there's your shape shifting, because you can sort of go with it, shut your eyes, and you can feel what it's like to be a rabbit.
Mentioning the cabbage, my son said to us, it was a cabbage, wasn't it, that Ben said the other day about the DNA of a cabbage. Is very, very similar to human DNA. We sort of looked at him as if he was another alien or something. But that is, apparently, yes, our DNA is very similar to that of a cabbage, which I'm not sure I can wrap my head around that really, but clever stuff.
Well, try this one then, because our DNA is very, very similar to pigs.
That doesn't. I lived on a pig farm, so yeah.
Of course you did, yeah.
Yes, and I do. And isn't it these random things that you hang on to? I remember my dad telling me once that cannibals used to call human being us white
long
beings, not pig. Yes, because that's what we taste like apparently. So I can see that. Yeah. And I know with tattoo artists, they quite often practice on pigskin.
Yes, because it's so very, very similar.
That does make sense.
Yeah. And one of the ways they found it was it's a rather sort of gory, grisly story. But back in the 60s, I think it was, there was, I think it was a couple. Anyway, a couple of serial killers. And the police couldn't find bodies and they couldn't get anything there. But these people kept a pig farm.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, and they did. They chucked the bodies or the body parts if the pigs couldn't manage a whole one. And the pigs ate them because pigs are totally omnivorous.
Oh, anything.
They absolutely will, yeah. And of course, it's perfectly okay as far as they're concerned to eat a human because it's just another animal.
Yeah.
And I think they did manage to find a little bit of DNA. It was just after people got into DNA this happened, but it was almost indistinguishable. And eventually they found them through actually getting in after a horrible murder and finding bits. And then the whole thing came out. But it was sort of like, you can't, after a pig's eaten you can't even tell.
Come here for tips on how to dispose of bodies.
We've got the lot, guys. We've got the lot.
But they do. I mean, anything. They used to eat rats and all sorts of things on the farm. Yeah, they would eat anything that was in front of them. Yeah.
They do, and I mean they're wonderful in that way. And I really like pigs. And
I do. They are one of my favourites.
Yeah, they are absolutely gorgeous. And if you've got them like running around and that sort of thing, and you are respectful, it's a good idea to be respectful for pigs because they can really do damage if they don't like you.
Oh, they're intelligent, aren't they? You don't want to upset one.
And it's like, don't give me that shit. And they do, but I mean, they love having their heads scratched. At least my friends' ones did, and that sort of thing. And one of my friends is one of the people who teaches people how to keep pigs in a wood, and he keeps Tamworths. And and you see a full-grown boar or a full-grown sow, and they stand up to here on me, and I'm 5'3".
Oh yeah.
That shoulder is up here.
Yes, they're not small.
It's this tank, this ginger tank coming at you.
Teacup pigs do not exist. Do not buy a teacup piglet thinking it's going to stay this big.
It is not. Well, you can, but I mean, how horrid, that you've bred them to do that sort of thing. But they are ever so sweet, and they're brilliant.
Very intelligent. You can train them. They are very intelligent.
Oh yeah. And if you just sort of like, I mean, both of my friends who kept pigs, I mean, they would just go and sit with the pigs, and you didn't say anything. It was just like you were, like meditating with the pig, being still.
Yeah.
The pig would come, and I mean, I've had a pig put his nose in my lap when I've just been sitting with them. And it's a bit heavy and rather smelly, but that's fine.
Yes, they're not dainty creatures, are they?
Well, no. Like I said, my friend's, his sow when she was pregnant, it was like having a tank coming at you.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to fall over in a pigsty or anything like that because you wouldn't survive.
They will trample you.
Yeah.
The only animal that probably won't is a horse.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't if they can avoid it. But cows will, pigs will, sheep will.
Yeah.
So don't fall over.
No, but we won't do that. Which is probably a good place to stop on how to get rid of bodies and don't fall over.
Remember this, guys. When you're going to need this in the future, just remember the tip that you got here. We will let you know if we get arrested in the coming couple of weeks.
So we need a disclaimer.
Oh, we certainly do. No, great talking to you.
Yes, as usual, totally bizarre but fascinating topics.
Well, hopefully everybody else finds we've been bizarre enough, and do keep the questions coming, people.
Yes, definitely. We're happy to answer questions about anything, really. Look at the subjects we cover.
Yeah, we possibly won't go into details of how to do the perfect murder and kill somebody and not get caught. If you want to do that, PM us.
We'll say that, you know, just in case we need it.
I think we better stop there.
Yeah, let's before we dig ourselves in any deeper.
Absolutely. Take care, folks. Take care. See you
Lovely
soon.
speaking to you again, as always, Ellen. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.